no use and will count for nothing, and lead will not be wanted. All these will be wiped out and destroyed from the face of the earth when the chosen one appears in front of the Lord of spirits. And there my eyes saw a deep valley, and its mouth was open, and all those who dwell upon dry ground and the sea and the islands will bring gifts and presents and offerings to him. And the hills will be like a spring of water, and the righteous will have rest from the ill treatment of the sinners. And I looked and turned to another part of the earth, and I saw there a deep valley with burning fire. And they brought the kings and powerful and threw them into that valley. And there my eyes saw how they made instruments for them, iron chains of immeasurable weight. And I asked the angel of peace who went with me, saying, "These chain instruments, for whom are they being prepared?" And he said to me, "These are being prepared for the host of Azazel, so that they may take them and throw them into the lowest part of hell, and they will cover their jaws with rough stones, as the Lord of spirits commanded." And Michael and Gabriel and Raphael and Phanuel, these will take hold of them on that great day, and throw them on that day into the furnace of burning fire, so that the Lord of spirits may take vengeance on them for their iniquity. In that they became servants of Satan, and led astray those who dwell upon the dry ground. And in those days the punishment of the Lord of spirits will go out, and all the storehouses of the waters which are above the sky and under the earth will be opened. And all the waters will be joined with the waters that are above the sky. The water that is above the sky is male, and the water that is under the earth is female. And all those who dwell upon the dry ground and those who dwell under the ends of heaven will be wiped out. And because of this they will acknowledge their iniquity which they have committed on the earth, and through this they will be destroyed. And after this the head of days repented and said, "I have destroyed to no purpose all those who dwell upon the dry ground." And he swore by his great name, "From now on I will not act like this towards all those who dwell upon the dry ground. And I will put a sign in heaven, and it will be a pledge of faith between me and them forever, so long as heaven is above the earth. And this will be in accordance with my command, when I want to take hold of them with the hands of the angels on the day of distress and pain, in the face of my anger and my wrath and my anger will remain upon them, says the Lord of the spirits. You, powerful kings who dwell upon the dry ground, will be obliged to watch my chosen one sit down on the throne of my glory and judge in the name of the Lord of spirits, Azazel, and all his associates, and all his host. And I saw there the host of the angels of punishment as they went, and they were holding chains of iron and bronze. And I asked the angel of peace who went with me, saying, "To whom are those who are holding the chains going?" And he said to me, "Each to his own chosen ones, and to their beloved ones, so that they may be thrown into the chasm in the depths of the valley. And then that valley will be filled with their chosen and beloved ones, and the days of their life will be at an end, and the days of their leading astray will no longer be counted. And in those days the angels will gather together, and will throw themselves towards the east. Upon the Parthians and Medes they will stir up the kings, so that a disturbing spirit will come upon them, and they will drive them from their thrones. And they will come out like lions from their lairs, and like hungry wolves in the middle of their flocks. And they will go up and trample on the land of my chosen ones. And the land of my chosen ones will become before them a tramping ground and a beaten track. But the city of my righteous ones will be a hindrance to their horses, and they will stir up slaughter amongst themselves, and their own right hand will be strong against them. And a man will not admit to knowing his neighbor, or his brother, nor a son his father, or his mother, until, through their death, there are corpses enough, and their punishment it will not be in vain. And in those days Sheol will open its mouth, and they will sink into it and their destruction. Sheol will swallow up the sinners in front of the faces of the chosen. And it came to pass after this, that I saw another host of chariots with men riding on them. And they came upon the wind from the east and from the west to the south. And the sound of the noise of their chariots was heard. And when this occurred, the holy ones observed it from heaven, and the pillars of the earth were shaken from their foundations, and the sound was heard from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven throughout the day. And all will fall down and worship the Lord of spirits. And this is the end of the second parable. And I began to speak the third parable, about the righteous and about the chosen. Blessed are you, the righteous and the chosen, for your lot will be glorious, and the righteous will be in the light of the sun, and the chosen in the light of eternal life. And there will be no end to the days of their life, and the days of the holy will be without number. And they will seek the light, and will find righteousness with the Lord of spirits. Peace be to the righteous with the Lord of the world. And after this it will be said to the holy, that they should seek in the heaven the secrets of righteousness, the lot of faith. For it has become bright as the sun upon the dry ground, and darkness has passed away. And there will be ceaseless light, and to a limit of days they will not come, for darkness will have been destroyed previously. And the light will endure in front of the Lord of the spirits, and the light of uprightness will endure in front of the Lord of spirits, forever. And in those days my eyes saw the secrets of the flashes of lightning, and the lights, and the regulations governing them, and they flash for a blessing or a curse, as the Lord of Spirit wishes. And there I saw the secrets of the thunder, and how when it crashes in heaven above the sound of it is heard. And they showed me the dwellings of the dry ground, and the sound of the thunder, for peace and for blessing, or for a curse, according to the word of the Lord of Spirits. And after this, all the secrets of the lights and of the flashes of lightning were shown to me. They flashed to bring blessing and satisfaction. In the 50th year, in the 7th month, on the 14th day of the month of the life of Enoch, in that parable, I saw how the heaven of heavens was shaken violently, and the host of the Most High and the angels, 1,000 thousands and 10,000 times 10,000, were extremely disturbed. And then I saw the head of days sitting on the throne of his glory, and the angels and righteous were sitting around him. And a great trembling seized me, and fear took hold of me, and my loins collapsed and gave way, and my whole being melted, and I fell upon my face. And the holy Michael sent another holy angel, one of the holy angels, and he raised me. And when he raised me, my spirit returned, for I had been unable to endure the sight of that host, and the disturbance, and the shaking of heaven. And the holy Michael said to me, What sight has disturbed you like this? Until today has the day of his mercy lasted, and he has been merciful and long-suffering towards those who dwell upon the dry ground. And when the day, and the power, and the punishment, and the judgment come that the Lord of spirits has prepared for those who worship the righteous judgment, and for those who deny the righteous judgment, and for those who take his name in vain, and that day has been prepared, for the chosen a covenant, for the sinners a visitation. And on that day 2 monsters will be separated from one another, a female monster whose name is Leviathan, to dwell in the depths of the sea above the springs of the waters. And the name of the male is Behemoth, who occupies with his breast an immense desert named Dindane, on the east of the garden where the chosen and the righteous dwell, where my great-grandfather was received, who was 7th from Adam, the first man whom the Lord of spirits made. And I asked that other angel to show me the power of those monsters, how they were separated on one day and thrown, one into the depths of the sea, and the other onto dry ground of the desert. And he said to me, Son of man, you here wish to know what is secret. And the other angel spoke to me, the one who went with me, and showed me what is secret, what is first and last in heaven, in the heights, and under the dry ground, in the depths, and at the ends of heaven, and at the foundations of heaven, and in the storehouses of the winds, and how the spirits are distributed, and how they are weighed, and how the springs and the winds are counted according to the power of their spirit, and the power of the light of the moon, and the divisions of the stars according to their names, and how all the divisions are made, and the thunder according to the places where it falls, and all the divisions that are made in lightning, so that it may flash, and its host, how quickly they obey. For the thunder have fixed intervals, which have been given to its sound for waiting, and the thunder and the lightning are not separate, although not the same. Through a spirit the two of them move inseparably. For when the lightning flashes, the thunder utters its voice, and the Spirit at the proper time causes it to rest, and divides equally between them, because the storehouse of the times for their occurrence is like that of the sand, and each of them at the proper time is held by a rein, and turned back by the power of the Spirit, and likewise driven forward according to the number of the regions of the earth. And the spirit of the sea is male and strong, and according to the power of its strength, the Spirit turns it back with a rein, and likewise it is driven forward and scattered amongst all the mountains of the earth. And the spirit of the hoarfrost is its own angel, and the spirit of the hail is a good angel. And the spirit of the snow has withdrawn because of its power, and it has a special spirit. And that which rises from it is like smoke, and its name is frost. And the spirit of the mist is not associated with them in their storehouse, but has a special storehouse. For its course is glorious, both in light and darkness, and in winter and in summer, and its storehouse is an angel. The spirit of the dew has its dwelling at the ends of heaven, and is connected with the storehouses of the rain. And its course is in winter and in summer, and its clouds. And the clouds of the midst are associated, and one gives to the other. And when the spirit of the rain moves from its storehouse, the angels come and open the storehouse and bring it out. And when it is scattered over all the dry ground, it joins with all the water that is on the dry ground. And whenever it joins with the water, that is on the dry ground. For the waters are for those who dwell upon the dry ground, for they are nourishment for the dry ground from the Most High who is in heaven. Therefore there is a fixed measure for the rain, and the angels comprehend it. All these things I saw towards the garden of righteousness. And the angel of peace who was with me said to me, These two monsters, prepared in accordance with the greatness of the Lord, will feed them that punishment of the Lord. And children will be killed with their mothers, and sons with their fathers. When the punishment of the Lord of spirits rests upon them, it will remain resting, so that the punishment of the Lord of spirits may not come in vain upon these. Afterwards the judgment will be according to his mercy and his patience. And in those days I saw long cords given to those angels, and they acquired wings for themselves, and flew, and went towards the north. And I asked the angel, saying, Why did these take the long cords and go? And he said to me, They went so that they may measure. And the angel who went with me said to me, These will bring the measurements of the righteous, and the ropes of the righteous to the righteous, that they may rely on the name of the Lord of spirits forever and ever. The chosen will begin to dwell with the chosen, and these measurements will be given to faith, and will strengthen the righteousness. And these measurements will reveal all the secrets of the depths of the earth, and those who were destroyed by the desert, and those who were devoured by the fish of the sea and by animals, that they may return and rely on the day of the chosen one. For no one will be destroyed in front of the Lord of spirits, and no one can be destroyed. And all those in the heavens above received a command, and power, and one voice, and one light like fire was given to them. And him, before everything, they blessed and exalted and praised in wisdom. And they showed themselves wise in speech and in the spirit of life. And the Lord of spirits set the chosen one on the throne of his glory, and he will judge all the works of the holy ones in heaven above, and in the balance he will weigh their deeds. And when he lifts his face to judge their secret ways according to the word of the name of the Lord of spirits, and their path according to the way of the righteous judgment of the Lord Most High, they will all speak with one voice, and bless, and praise, and exalt, and glorify the name of the Lord of spirits. And he will call all the host of the heavens, and all the holy ones above, and the host of the Lord, the cherubim, the seraphim, and the Ophanim, and all the angels of power, and all the angels of the principalities, and the chosen one, and the other host that is upon the dry ground, and over the water on that day. And they will raise one voice, and will bless, and praise, and glorify, and exalt in the spirit of faith, and in the spirit of wisdom, and of patience, and in the spirit of mercy, and in the spirit of justice, and of peace, and in the spirit of goodness. And they will all say with one voice, Blessed is he, and blessed be the name of the Lord of spirits forever and ever. All those who do not sleep in heaven above will bless him. All his holy ones who are in heaven will bless him, and all the chosen ones who dwell in the garden of life, and every spirit able to bless, and praise, and exalt, and hallow your holy name. And all flesh which to the limit of its power will praise and bless your name forever and ever. For great is the mercy of the Lord of spirits, and he is long-suffering, and all his works and all his forces, as many as he has made, he has revealed to the righteous and the chosen in the name of the Lord of spirits. And thus the Lord commanded the kings, and the mighty, and the exalted, and those who dwell upon the earth, and said, Open your eyes, and raise your horns, if you are able to acknowledge the chosen one. And the Lord of spirits sat on his throne of glory, and the spirit of righteousness was poured out on him. And the word of his mouth kills all the sinners and all the lawless, and they are destroyed in front of him. And on that day all the kings and the mighty and the exalted, and those who possess the earth will stand up, and they will see and recognize how he sits on the throne of his glory. And the righteous are judged in righteousness in front of him, and no idle word is spoken in front of him. And pain will come upon them as upon a woman in labor, for whom giving birth is difficult when her child enters the mouth of the womb. And she has difficulty giving birth. And one half of them will look at the other, and they will be terrified, and will cast down their faces, and pain will take hold of them when they see that Son of Woman sitting on the throne of his glory. And the mighty kings and all those who possess the earth will praise and bless and exalt him who rules everything that is hidden. For from the beginning that Son of Man was hidden, and the Most High kept him in the presence of his power, and revealed him only to the chosen. And the community of the holy and the chosen will be sown, and all the chosen will stand before him on that day. And all the mighty kings and the exalted and those who rule the dry ground will fall down before him on their faces and worship. And they will set their hopes on that Son of Man, and will entreat him, and will petition for mercy from him. But the Lord of spirits will then so press them that they will hasten to go out from before him, and their faces will be filled with shame, and the darkness will grow deeper on their faces. And the angels of punishment will take them, so that they may repay them for the wrong that they did to his children and to his chosen ones. And they will become a spectacle to the righteous and to his chosen ones. They will rejoice over them, for the anger of the Lord of spirits will rest upon them, and the sword of the Lord of spirits will be drunk with them. And the righteous and the chosen will be saved on that day, and they will never see the faces of the sinners and the lawless from then on. And the Lord of spirits will remain over them, and with that Son of Man they will dwell and eat and lie down and rise up forever and ever. And the righteous and chosen will have risen from the earth, and will have ceased to cast down their faces, and will have put on the garment of life. And this will be a garment of life from the Lord of spirits, and your garments will not wear out, and your glory will not fail in front of the Lord of spirits. In those days the mighty kings who possess the dry ground will entreat the angels of his punishment to whom they have been handed over, so that they might give them a little respite, and so that they might fall down and worship in front of the Lord of spirits and confess their sins in front of him. And they will bless and praise the Lord of spirits and say, Blessed be the Lord of spirits, and the Lord of kings, the Lord of the mighty, and the Lord of the rich, and the Lord of glory, and the Lord of wisdom. And everything secret is clear in front of you, and your power is for all generations, and your glory is forever and ever. Deep and without number are all your secrets, and your righteousness is beyond reckoning. Now we realize that we ought to praise and bless the Lord of kings and the one who is king over all kings. And they will say, would that we might be given a respite so that we might praise and thank and bless him and make our confession in front of his glory. And now we long for a respite, but do not find it. We are driven off and do not obtain it. And the light has passed away from before us, and darkness will be our dwelling forever and ever. For we have not made our confession before him, and we have not praised the name of the Lord of kings, and we have not praised the Lord for all his works, but our hopes have been on the scepter of our kingdom and of our glory. And on the day of our affliction and distress he does not save us, and he will find no respite to make our confession that our Lord is faithful in all his doings, and in all his judgments and his justice, and that his judgments show no respect for persons. And we pass away from in front of him because of all our works, and all of our sins have been counted exactly. Then they will say to them, our souls are sated with possessions gained through iniquity, but they do not prevent our going down into the flames of the torment of Sheol. And after this their faces will be filled with darkness and shame in front of that Son of Man, and they will be driven away from him, and the sword will dwell among them in front of him. And thus says the Lord of spirits, this is the law and the judgment for the mighty, and the kings, and the exalted, and for those who possess the dry ground in front of the Lord of the spirits. And I saw other figures hidden in that place. I heard the voice of the angel saying, these are the angels who came down from heaven onto the earth and revealed what is secret to the sons of men, and led astray the sons of men, so that they committed sin. And in those days Noah saw the earth had tilted, and that its destruction was near. And he set off from there and went to the ends of the earth, and cried out to his great-grandfather Enoch. And Noah said 3 times in a bitter voice, hear me, hear me, hear me. And he said to him, tell me, what is it that is being done on the earth, that the earth is so afflicted and shaken, lest I be destroyed with it? And immediately there was a great disturbance on the earth, and a voice was heard from heaven, and I fell upon my face. And my great-grandfather Enoch came, stood by me, and said to me, why did you cry out to me with such bitter crying and weeping? And a command has gone out from the Lord against those who will dwell upon the dry ground, that this must be their end. For they have learnt all the secrets of the angels, and all the wrongdoings of the Satans, and all their secret power, and all the power of those who practice magic arts, and the power of enchantments, and the power of those who cast molten images from all the earth. And further, how silver is produced from the dust of the earth, and how soft metal occurs on the earth. For lead and tin are not produced from the earth. Like the former, there is a spring which produces them, and an angel who stands in it, and that angel distributes them. And after this my great-grandfather Enoch took hold of me with his hand, and raised me, and said to me, go, for I have asked the Lord of spirits about this disturbance on the earth. And he said to me, because of their iniquity their judgment has been completed, and they will no longer be counted before me. Because of their sorceries they have searched out and learnt, the earth and those who dwell upon it will be destroyed. And for these there will be no place of refuge forever, for they showed to them what is secret, and they have been condemned. But not so for you, my son. The Lord of spirits knows that you are pure and innocent of this reproach concerning the secrets. And he has established your name among the holy, and will keep you from amongst those who dwell upon the dry ground. And he has destined your offspring in righteousness to be kings and for great honors. And from your offspring will flow out a spring of the righteous and holy, without number forever. And after this he showed me the angels of punishment, who were ready to come and release all the forces of the water which is under the earth, in order to bring judgment and destruction on all those who reside and dwell upon the dry ground. And the Lord of spirits commanded the angels who were coming out not to raise their hands, but to keep watch, for those angels were in charge of the forces of the waters. And I came out from before Enoch. And in those days the word of the Lord came to me, and he said to me, Noah, behold, your lot has come up before me, a lot without reproach, a lot of love and uprightness. And now the angels are making a wooden structure, and when the angels come out from that task, I will put my hand on it and keep it safe. And a change shall take place, so that the dry ground may not remain empty. And I will establish your offspring before me forever and ever, and I will scatter those who dwell with you over the face of the dry ground. I will not again put them to the test on the face of the earth, but they will be blessed and increase on the dry ground in the name of the Lord. And they will shut up those angels who showed iniquity in that burning valley, which my great-grandfather Enoch had shown to me previously in the west, near the mountains of gold and silver and iron and soft metal and tin. And I saw that valley, in which there was a great disturbance, and a heaving of the waters. And when all this happened, from the fiery molten metal and the disturbance, which disturbed the waters in that place, a smell of sulfur was produced, and it was associated with those waters. And that valley of the angels, who led men astray, burns under the ground. And through the valleys of that same area flow out rivers of fire, where those angels will be punished, who led astray those on the dry ground. And in those days those waters will serve the kings, and the mighty, and the exalted, and those who dwell upon dry ground, for the healing of their soul and body, but also for the punishment of the spirit. And their spirits are so full of lust that they will be punished in their bodies, for they denied the Lord of spirits. And they see their punishment every day, yet they do not believe in his name. And the more their bodies are burnt, the more a change will come over their spirits forever and ever. For no one can speak an idle word in front of the Lord of spirits. For judgment will come upon them, for they believe in the lust of their bodies, but deny the Spirit of the Lord. And those same waters will undergo a change in those days. For when those angels are punished in those days, the temperature of those springs of water will change. And when the angels come up, that water of the springs will change and become cold. And I heard the holy Michael answering and saying, This judgment with which the angels are judged is a testimony for the kings and the mighty who possess the dry ground. For these waters of judgment serve for the healing of the bodies of the kings and for the lust of their bodies. But they do not see and they do not believe that these waters will change and will become a fire which burns forever. And after this, my great-grandfather Enoch gave me the explanation of all the secrets in a book and the parables that had been given to him, and he put them together for me in the words of the book of parables. And on that day the holy Michael answered Raphael, saying, The power of the Spirit seizes me and makes me tremble because of the harshness of the judgment of the angels. Who can endure the harshness of the judgment which has been executed, and before which they melt with fear? And the holy Michael answered Raphael again and said to him, Who would not soften his heart over it, and whose mind would not be disturbed by this word? Judgment has gone out against them upon those whom they have led out like this. But it came to pass, when he stood before the Lord of spirits, that the holy Michael spoke as follows to Raphael, I will not take the part under the eye of the Lord, for the Lord of spirits is angry with them, because they act as if they were the Lord. Because of this, the hidden judgment will come upon them forever and ever, for neither any other angel nor any man will receive their lot, but they alone have received their judgment forever and ever. And after this judgment I will terrify them and make them tremble, for they have shown this to those who dwell upon the dry ground. And behold, the names of those angels. The first of them is Simyaza, and the second Artakepha, and the third Armin, and the fourth Kokabiel, and the fifth Turiel, and the sixth Ramiel, and the seventh Daniel, and the eighth Nuquel, and the ninth Baraquiel, and the 10th Azazel, and the 11th Armoros, the 12th Batriel, the 13th Bazazel, the 14th Ananel, the 15th Turiel, the 16th Samsiel, the 17th Yedarel, the 18th Tumiel, the 19th Turiel, the 20th Rumiel, and the 21st Azazel. And these are the chiefs of their angels, and the names of the leaders of hundreds, and their leaders of fifties, and their leaders of tens. The name of the first is Yakun. This is the one who led astray all the children of the holy angels, and he brought them down unto the ground, and led them astray through the daughters of men. And the name of the second is Asbeel. This one suggested an evil plan to the children of the holy angels, and led them astray, so that they corrupted their bodies with the daughters of men. And the name of the third is Gadriel. This is the one that showed all the deadly blows to the sons of men, and he led astray Eve. And he showed the weapons of death to the children of men, the shield and the breastplate, and the sword for slaughter, and all the weapons of death to the sons of men. And from his hand they have gone out against those who dwell the dry ground from that time and forever and ever. And the name of the fourth is Penemu. This one showed the sons of men the bitter and the sweet, and showed them all the secrets of their wisdom. He taught men the art of writing with ink and paper, and through this many have gone astray, from eternity to eternity and to this day. For men were not created for this, that they should confirm their faith like this, with pen and ink. For men were created no differently from the angels, so that they might remain righteous and pure, and death, which destroys everything, would not have touched them. But through this knowledge of theirs they are being destroyed, and through this power death consumes them. And the name of the fifth is Casdea. This one showed the sons of men all the evil blows of the spirits and of the demons, and the blows that attack the embryo in the womb so that it miscarries, and the blows that attack the soul, the bite of the serpent, and the blows that occur at midday, and the son of the serpent, who is strong. And this is the task of Kesbil, the chief of the oath, who showed the oath to the holy ones when he dwelt on the high in glory, and his name is Becca. And this one told the holy Michael that he should show him the secret name, so that they might mention it in the oath, so that those who showed the sons of men everything that is secret trembled before that name and oath. And this is the power of this oath, for it is powerful and strong, and he placed this oath, okay, in the charge of the holy Michael. And these are the secrets of this oath, and they are strong through this oath. And heaven was suspended before the world was created, and forever. And through it the earth was founded upon the water. And from the hidden recesses of the mountains come beautiful waters, from the creation of the world, and forever. And through that oath the sea was created, and as its foundation, for the time of anger, he placed for it the sand, and it does not go beyond it, from the creation of the world and forever. And through that oath the deeps were made firm, and they stand and do not move from their place, from the creation of the world and forever. And through that oath the sun and the moon complete their course, and do not transgress their command, from the creation of the world and forever. And through that oath the stars complete their course, and he calls their names, and they answer him, from the creation of the world and forever. And likewise the spirits of the water, of the winds, and of all the breezes, and their paths, according to all the groups of the spirits. And there are kept the storehouses of the sound of thunder, and of the light of the lightning. And there are kept the storehouses of the hail, and the hoarfrost, and the storehouses of the mist, and the storehouses of the rain and dew. And all these make their confession, and give thanks in front of the Lord of spirits, and sing praises with all their power. And their food consists of all their thanksgiving, and they give thanks, praise, and exalt in the name of the Lord of spirits, forever and ever. And this oath is strong over them, and through it they are kept safe, and their courses are not disturbed. And they had great joy, and they blessed, praised, and exalted, because the name of that Son of Man had been revealed to them. And he sat on the throne of his glory, and the whole judgment was given to the Son of Man, and he will cause the sinners to pass away and be destroyed from the face of the earth. And those who led astray the world will be bound in chains, and will be shut up in the assembly place of their destruction, and all their works will pass away from the face of the earth. And from then on there will be nothing corruptible. For that Son of Man has appeared, and has sat on the throne of his glory, and everything will pass away and go from in front of him. And the word of that Son of Man will be strong in front of the Lord of spirits. This is the third parable of Enoch. And it came to pass after this that while he was living, his name was lifted from those who dwell upon the dry ground to the presence of that Son of Man, and to the presence of the Lord of spirits. And he was lifted on the chariots of the Spirit, and his name vanished from among them. And from that day I was not counted among them. And he placed me between two winds, between the north and the west, where the angels took the cords to measure for me the place for the chosen and the righteous. And there I saw the first fathers and the righteous who from the beginning of the world dwelt in that place. And it came to pass after this that my spirit was carried off, and it went up into the heavens. I saw the sons of the holy angels treading upon flames of fire. Their garments were white, and their clothing, and the light of their face was like snow. And I saw two rivers of fire, and the light of that fire shone like a hyacinth. And I fell upon my face in front of the Lord of spirits. And the angel Michael, one of the archangels, took hold of me by my right hand, and raised me and led me out to all the secrets of mercy and the secrets of righteousness. And he showed me all the secrets of the ends of heaven, and all the storehouses of the stars, and the lights from where they come out from below the holy ones. And the Spirit carried Enoch off to the highest heaven, and I saw there, in the middle of that light, something built of crystal stones, and in the middle of those stones tongues of living fire. And my spirit saw a circle of fire, which surrounded that house. From its four sides came rivers, full of living fire, and they surrounded that house. And round about were the seraphim, and the cherubim, and the ophanim. These are they who do not sleep, but keep watch over the throne of his glory. And I saw angels who could not be counted, 1,000 thousands and 10,000 times 10,000 surrounding that house. And Michael, and Raphael, and Gabriel, and Phanuel, and the holy angels who are in the heavens above went in and out of that house. And Michael, and Raphael, and Gabriel, and Phanuel, and many holy angels without number came out from that house. And with them the head of days, his head white and pure like wool, and his garments indescribable. And I fell upon my face, and my whole body melted, and my spirit was transformed. And I cried out in a loud voice in the spirit of power, and I blessed, praised, and exalted. And these blessings which came out from my mouth were pleasing before that head of days. And that head of days came with Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Phanuel, and thousands and tens of thousands of angels without number. And that angel came to me and greeted me with his voice, and said to me, You are the Son of Man, who was born to righteousness, and righteousness remains over you, and the righteousness of the head of days will not leave you. And he said to me, He proclaims peace to you in the name of the world which is to come. For from there peace has come out from the creation of the world, and so you will have it forever and forever and ever. And all will walk according to your way, inasmuch as righteousness will never leave you. With you will be their dwelling, and with you their lot. And they will not be separated from you forever and forever and ever. And so there will be length of days with that Son of Man. And the righteous will have peace, and the righteous will have an upright way in the name of the Lord of spirits, forever and ever. The Book of Revolutions of the Lights of Heaven. Each as it is, according to their classes, according to their period of rule and their times, according to their names and places of origin, and according to their months. That Uriel, the holy angel who was with me and is their leader, showed to me. And he showed me all their regulations exactly as they are for each year of the world and forever, until the new creation shall be made, which will last forever. And this is the first law of the lights. The light called the sun, its rising is in the gates of heaven that are towards the east, and its setting is in the western gates of heaven. And I saw 6 gates from which the sun rises, and 6 gates in which the sun sets, and the moon also rises and sets in those gates. And the leaders of the stars together with those whom they lead, there are 6 in the east and 6 in the west, all exactly in place, one next to the other. And there are many windows to the south and the north of those gates. And first there rises the greater light, named the sun, and its disk is like the disk of heaven, and the whole of it is full of a fire which gives light and warmth. The wind blows the chariots on which it ascends, and the sun goes down in the sky and returns through the north in order to reach the east, and is led so that it comes to the appropriate gate and shines in the sky. In this way it rises in the first month, in the large gate, namely, it rises through the fourth of those 6 gates that are towards the east. And in that fourth gate, through which the sun rises, in the first month, there are 12 window openings from which, whenever they are opened, flames come out. When the sun rises in heaven, it goes out through that fourth gate for 30 days, and exactly in the fourth gate, in the west of heaven, it goes down. And in those days the day grows daily longer, and the night grows nightly shorter, until the 13th morning. And on that day the day becomes longer than the night by a double part, and the day amounts to exactly 10 parts, and the night amounts to 8 parts. And the sun rises from that fourth gate and sets in the fourth gate, and returns to the 5th gate in the east for 30 mornings, and it rises from it and sets in the 5th gate. And then the day becomes longer by 2 parts, and the day amounts to 11 parts, and the night becomes shorter and amounts to 7 parts. And the sun returns to the east and comes to the 6th gate and rises and sets in the 6th gate for 31 mornings because of its sign. And on that day the day becomes longer than the night, and the day becomes double the night, and the day amounts to 12 parts, and the night becomes shorter and amounts to 6 parts. And the sun rises up so that the day may grow shorter, and the night longer. And the sun returns to the east, and it comes to the 6th gate, and rises from it, and sets for 30 mornings. And when 30 mornings have been completed, the day becomes shorter, by exactly 1 part, and the day amounts to 11 parts, and the night to 7 parts. And the sun goes out from the west, through that 6th gate, and goes to the east, and rises in the 5th gate for 30 mornings, and it sets in the west again, in the 5th gate in the west. On that day the day becomes shorter by 2 parts, and the day amounts to 10 parts, and the night to 8 parts. And the sun rises from that 5th gate, and sets in the 5th gate in the west, and rises in the 4th gate for 31 mornings because of its sign, and sets in the west. On that day the day becomes equal with the night, and is of equal length, and the night amounts to 9 parts, and the day to 9 parts. And the sun rises from that gate, and sets in the west, and returns to the east, and rises in the 3rd gate for 30 mornings, and sets in the west in the 3rd gate. And the sun rises from that 3rd gate, and sets in the 3rd gate in the west, and returns to the east, and the sun rises in the 2nd gate in the east for 30 mornings, and likewise it sets in the 2nd gate in the west of heaven. And on that day the night amounts to 11 parts, and the day to 7 parts. And the sun rises on that day from the 2nd gate, and sets in the west in the 2nd gate, and returns to the east for the 1st gate for 31 mornings, then sets in the west in the 1st gate. And on that day the night becomes longer, and becomes double the day, and the night amounts to exactly 12 parts, and the day to 6 parts. And with this the sun has completed the division of its journey, and it turns back again along the divisions of its journey, and it comes through that 1st gate for 30 mornings, and sets in the west opposite it. And on that day the night becomes shorter in length by 1 part, and amounts to 11 parts, and the day to 7 parts. And the sun returns and comes to the second gate in the east, and it returns along those divisions of its journey for 30 mornings, rising and setting. And on that day the night becomes shorter in length, and the night amounts to 10 parts, and the day to 8 parts. And on that day the sun rises from the second gate, and sets in the west, and returns to the east, and rises in the third gate for 31 mornings, and sets in the west of the sky. And on that day the night becomes shorter, and amounts to 9 parts, and the day amounts to 9 parts, and the night becomes equal with the day. And the year amounts to exactly 364 days. And the length of the day and the night, and the shortness of the day and the night, they are different because of the journey of the sun. Because of it, its journey becomes daily longer and nightly shorter. And this is the law and the journey of the sun and its return. As often as it returns, 60 times it returns and rises. That is the great eternal light, which forever and ever is named the sun. And this that rises is the great light, which is named after its appearance, as the Lord commanded. And thus it rises and sets. It neither decreases nor rests, but runs day and night in its chariot. And its light is 7 times brighter than that of the moon, but in size the two are equal. And after this law I saw another law, for the lesser light, named the moon. And its disk is like the disk of the sun, and the wind blows its chariot on which it rides, and in fixed measure light is given to it. And every month its rising and setting change, and its days are as the days of the sun. And when its light is uniformly full, it is a 7th part the light of the sun. And thus it rises, and its first phase is towards the east. It rises on the 30th morning, and on that day it appears and becomes for you the first phase of the moon, on the 30th morning, together with the sun in the gate through which the sun rises. And a half with a 7th part, and its entire disk is empty without light except for a 7th part, a 14th part of its light. And on the day that it receives a 7th and a half of its light amounts to a 7th, and a 7th part and a half. It sets with the sun, and when the sun rises, the moon rises with it, and receives a half of 1 part of light. And on that night, at the beginning of its morning, at the beginning of the moon's day, the moon sets with the sun, and is dark on that night in 6 and 7 parts and a half. And it rises on that day with exactly a 7th part, goes out, recedes from the rising of the sun, and becomes bright on the remainder of its days, in the other 6 and 7 parts. And another journey and law I saw for it, in that according to this law it makes its monthly journey. And Uriel, the holy angel who is leader of them all, showed me everything, and I wrote down their positions as he showed them to me. And I wrote down their months, as they are, and the appearance of their light, until 15 days have been completed. In 7th parts it makes all its darkness full, and in 7th parts it makes all its light full, in the east and in the west. And in certain months it changes its setting, and in certain months it follows its own individual course. In 2 months it sets with the sun, in those 2 gates that are in the middle, in the 3rd and in the 4th gate. It goes out for 7 days and turns back, and returns again to the gate from which the sun rises. And in that gate it makes all its light full, and it recedes from the sun, and comes in 8 days to the 6th gate from which the sun rises. And when the sun rises from the 4th gate, the moon goes out for 7 days, until it rises from the 5th gate. And again it returns in 7 days to the 4th gate, makes all its light full, recedes, and comes to the 1st gate in 8 days. And again it returns in 7 days to the 4th gate from which the sun rises. Thus I saw their positions, how the moon rose and how the sun set in those days. And if 5 years are added together, the sun has an excess of 30 days. For each year of the 5 years there are 364 days. And the excess of the sun and the stars come to 6 days. In 5 years, with 6 days each, they have an excess of 30 days, and the moon falls behind the sun and the stars by 30 days. And the moon conducts the years exactly, all of them to their eternal positions. They are neither early nor late, even by 1 day, but changed the year in exactly 364 days. In 3 years, there are 1,092 days, and in 5 years, there's 1,820 days, so that in 8 years, there are 2,912 days. For the moon alone, the days in 3 years comes to 1,062 days, and in 5 years, it is 50 days behind. And there are 1,770 days in 5 years, so that for the moon, the days in 8 years amount to 2,832 days. For the difference in 8 years is 80 days, and all the days that the moon is behind in 8 years are 80 days. And the year is completed exactly in accordance with their positions and the positions of the sun, in that they rise from the gates from which the sun rises and sets for 30 days. And the leaders of the tens of thousands, who are in charge of the whole of creation and in charge of all the stars, and also the 4 days which are added, and are not separated from their position according to the whole reckoning of the year. And these serve on the 4 days that are not counted in the reckoning of the year. And because of them, men go wrong in them. For these lights really serve in the stations of the world, one in the first gate, and one in the third gate, and one in the fourth gate, and one in the sixth gate. And the exact harmony of the world is completed in the separate 364 stations of the world. For the signs, and the times, and the years, and the days were showed to me by the angel Uriel, whom the Lord of eternal glory has placed in charge of all the lights of heaven, in heaven and in the world, so that they might rule on the face of heaven, and appear over the earth, and be leaders of day and night, the sun and the moon, the stars, and all the serving creatures who revolve in all the chariots of heaven. Likewise, Uriel showed to me 12 gate openings in the disk of the chariot of the sun in the sky, from which the rays of the sun came out. And from them heat comes out over the earth when they are opened at the times that are appointed for them. And there are openings for the winds and for the spirit of the dew when they are opened at their times, opened in heaven at the ends of the earth. I saw 12 gates in heaven at the ends of the earth, from which the sun and the moon and the stars and all the works of heaven go out in the east and in the west. And there are many window openings to the north and to the south, and each window, at its appointed time, sends out heat corresponding to those gates, from which the stars go out, in accordance with his command to them, and which they set according to their number. And I saw chariots in heaven, running through the region above those gates in which the stars that never set rotate. And one is bigger than all the others, and it goes round through the whole world. And at the ends of the earth I saw 12 gates open to all the winds, from which the winds come out and blow over the earth. 3 of them open in the front of heaven, and 3 in the back, and 3 on the right of heaven, and 3 on the left. And the 3 first are those towards the east, and then the 3 towards the north, and the 3 after those towards the south, and the 3 in the west. Through 4 of them come winds of blessing and peace, and from the other 8 come winds of punishment. When they are sent, they bring devastation to the whole earth, to the water which is on it, and to all those who dwell upon it, and to everything that is in the water and on dry ground. And the first wind from those gates, called the east wind, comes out through the first gate, which is towards the east. The one that comes from the south brings devastation, drought, heat, and destruction. And through the second gate in the middle comes what is right. And from it come rain and fruitfulness and prosperity and dew. And through the third gate, which is towards the north, comes cold and drought. And after these, the winds towards the south come out, through 3 gates. First, through the first of the gates, which inclines towards the east, comes a hot wind. And through the middle gate, which is next to it, come pleasant fragrances and dew and rain and prosperity and life. And through the third gate, which is towards the west, come dew and rain and locust and devastation. And after these, the winds towards the north. From the 7th gate, which is towards the east, come dew and rain, locusts, and devastation. And through the gate exactly in the middle come rain and dew and life and prosperity. And through the third gate, which is towards the west, come mist and hoarfrost, and snow, and rain, and dew, and locusts. And after these the winds towards the west. Through the first gate, which inclines towards the north, come dew, and rain, and hoarfrost, and cold, and snow, and frost. And from the middle gate come dew, and rain, prosperity, and blessing. And through the last gate, which is towards the south, come drought, and devastation, burning, and destruction. And thus the 12 gates of the 4 quarters of heaven are complete. And all of their laws, and all of their punishments, and all their benefits I have shown to you, my son Methuselah. They called the first quarter eastern because it is the first, and they called the second the south because there the Most High descends, and there especially the one who is blessed forever descends. And the western quarter is called waning because there all the lights of heaven wane and go down. And the 4th quarter, named the north, is divided into 3 parts, and the first of them is the dwelling place for men, and the second contains seas of water, and the deeps, and the forest, and the rivers, and darkness and mist. And the 3rd part contains the garden of righteousness. I saw 7 high mountains, which were higher than all other mountains on the earth, and from them snow comes, and days and times and years pass away and go by. I saw 7 rivers on the earth larger than all the other rivers. One of them comes from the east and pours out its waters into the great sea. And 2 of them come from the north to the sea and pour out their water into the Erythraean Sea in the east. And the remaining 4 flow out on the side of the north to their seas, 2 to the Erythraean Sea, and 2 into the great sea, and they discharge themselves there, and not into the wilderness, as some say. I saw 7 large islands in the sea and on the land, 2 on the land, and 5 in the great sea. The names of the sun are as follows: the first, Orieres; the second, Tomasis. The moon has 4 names. The first name is Asanya, and the second Ebla, and the third Benace, and the fourth Ire. These are the 2 great lights. Their disk is like the disk of heaven, and in size the 2 are equal. In the disk of the sun are 7 parts of light, which are added to it more than to the moon. And in fixed measure light is transferred to the moon until a 7th part of the sun is exhausted. And they set, go into the gates of the west, go round through the north, and rise through the gates of the east on the face of heaven. And when the moon rises, it appears in the sky, and has half of a 7th part of light, and on the 14th day it makes all its light full. And 15 parts of light are transferred to it, until on the 15th day its light is full, according to the sign of the year, and amounts to 15 parts. And the moon comes into being by halves of a 7th part. And in its waning on the first day it decreases to 14 parts of its light, and on the second to 13 parts, and on the third to 12 parts, on the fourth to 11 parts, and on the 5th to 10 parts, and on the 6th to 9 parts, and on the 7th to 8 parts, and on the 8th to 7 parts, and on the 9th to 6 parts, and on the 10th to 5 parts, and on the 11th to 4 parts, and on the 12th to the 3, and on the 13th to 2, and on the 14th to half of a 7th part. And all the light that remains from the total disappears on the 15th day. And in certain months the moon has 29 days, and once 28. And Uriel showed me another law, when light is transferred to the moon, and on which side it is transferred from the sun. All the time that the moon is increasing in its light, it transfers as it becomes opposite the sun, until in 14 days its light is full in the sky. And when it is all ablaze, its light is full in the sky. And on the first day it is called the new moon, for on that daylight rises on it. And its light becomes fully exactly on the day that as the sun goes down in the west, it rises from the east for the night. And the moon shines for the whole night until the sun rises opposite it, and the moon is seen opposite the sun. And on the side on which the light of the moon appears, there again it wanes until all its light disappears, and the days of the moon end, and its disk remains empty without light. And for 3 months, at its proper time, it achieves 30 days, and for 3 months it achieves 29 days, during which it completes its waning in the first period, in the first gate, 127 days. And in the time of its rising for 3 months, it appears in each month with 30 days. And for 3 months it appears in each month with 29 days. By night for 20 days each time it looks like a man, and by day like heaven, for there is nothing else in it except its light. And now, my son Methuselah, I have shown you everything, and the whole law of the stars of heaven is complete. And he showed me the whole law for these, for every day, and for every time, and for every rule, and for every year, and for the end thereof, according to its command for every month and every week. And the waning of the moon, which occurs in the 6th gate, for in that 6th gate its light becomes full, and after that it is the beginning of the month. And the waning which occurs in the 1st gate, at its proper time, until 127 days are complete, or by weeks, 25 weeks and 2 days, and how it falls behind the sun, according to the law of the stars, by exactly 5 days in one period of time, when it has completed the pathway you have seen. Such is the appearance and likeness of every light which Uriel, the great angel who is their leader, showed me. And in those days Uriel answered me and said to me, Behold, I have shown you everything, O Enoch, and I have revealed everything to you, so that you may see the sun, and this moon, and those who lead the stars of heaven, and all those who turn them, their task, and their times, and their rising. But in the days of the sinners the years will become shorter, and their seed will be late on their land, and on their fields. And all things on the earth will change and will not appear at their proper time, and the rain will be withheld, and heaven will retain it. And in those times the fruits of the earth will be late, and will not grow at their proper time, and the fruits of the trees will be withheld at their proper time. And the moon will change its customary practice, and will not appear at its proper time. But in those days it will appear in heaven, come on top of a large chariot in the west, and shine with more than normal brightness. And many heads of the stars in command will go astray, and these will change their courses and their activities, and will not appear at the times that have been prescribed for them. And the entire law of the stars will be closed to the sinners, and the thoughts of those who dwell upon the earth will go astray over them, and they will turn from all their ways and will go astray, and will think them gods. And many evils will overtake them, and punishment will come upon them to destroy them all. And he said to me, O Enoch, look at the book of the tablets of heaven, and read what is written upon them, and not every individual fact. And I looked at everything that was written, and I noted everything. And I read the book and everything that was written in it, all the deeds of men, and all the children of flesh who will be upon the earth for all the generations of eternity. And then I immediately blessed the Lord, the eternal King of glory, in that he has made all the works of the world, and I praised the Lord because of his patience, and I blessed him on account of the sons of Adam. And at that time I said, Blessed is the man who dies righteous and good, concerning whom no book of iniquity has been written, and against whom no guilt has been found. And these 3 holy ones brought me and set me on the earth in front of the door of my house, and said to me, Tell everything to your son Methuselah, and show all your children that no flesh is righteous before the Lord, for he created them. For 1 year we will leave you with your children, until you have regained your strength, so that you may teach your children and write these things down for them, and testify to all your children. And in the 2nd year we will take you from amongst them. Let your heart be strong, for the good will proclaim righteousness to the good. The righteous will rejoice with the righteous, and they will wish each other well. But the sinner will die with the sinner, and the apostate will sink with the apostate. And those who practice righteousness will die because of the deeds of men, and will be gathered in because of the deeds of the impious. And in those days they finished speaking to me, and I went to my family as I blessed the Lord of ages. And now, my son Methuselah, all these things I recount to you and write down for you. I have revealed everything to you, and have given you books about all these things. Keep, my son Methuselah, the books from the hand of your father, so that you may pass them on to the generations of eternity. I have given wisdom to you, and to your children, and to those who will be your children, that they may give it to their children, for all the generations forever, this wisdom that is beyond their thoughts. And those who understand it will not sleep, but will incline their ears that they may learn this wisdom, and it will be better for those who eat from it than good food. Blessed are all the righteous, blessed are all those who walk in the way of righteousness and do not sin like the sinners. In the numbering of all their days in which the sun journeys in heaven, coming in and out through the gates of heaven for 30 days. With the leaders of the thousands of this order of stars, and with the 4 which are added and divided between the 4 seasons of the year, which lead them and appear with them on 4 days. Because of them men go wrong, and they do not reckon them in the reckoning of the whole year. For men go wrong in respect of them, and do not know them exactly. For they belong in the reckoning of the year, and are truly recorded forever, 1 in the first gate, and 1 in the third, and 1 in the fourth, and 1 in the sixth. And the year is completed in 364 days. And the account of it is true, and the recorded reckoning of it is exact, for the lights, and the months, and the feast, and the years, and the days. Uriel showed me and inspired me, he to whom the Lord of the whole created world gave commands about the host of heaven for me. And he has power in heaven, over night and day, to cause light to shine on men, the sun, the moon, and the stars, and all the powers of heaven which rotate in their orbits. And this is the law of the stars, which set in their places at their times, at their feast, and in their months. And these are the names of those who lead them, who keep watch, so that they appear at their times, and in their orders, and in their months, and in their periods of rule, and in their positions. Their 4 leaders, who divide the 4 parts of the year, appear first, and after them the 12 leaders of the orders, who divide the months and the years into 364 days, with the heads over thousands who separate the days. And for the 4 days that are added to them, there are the leaders who separate the 4 parts of the year. And as for these heads over thousands, one is added between the leader and the led, but their leaders make the separation. And these are the names of the leaders who separate the 4 appointed parts of the year: Melchiel, Helamelech, Melial, and Narel. And the names of those whom they lead: Adnarel, Liasusael, Lilumiel. These 3 follow behind the leaders of the orders. And all others follow behind the 3 leaders of the orders, who follow behind those leaders of positions, who separate the 4 parts of the year. In the beginning of the year, Melchiel rises first and rules, who is called the southern sun, and all the days of his period during which he rules are 91. And these are the signs of the days that are to be seen on the earth in the days of his period of rule: sweat, and heat, and calm. And all the trees bear fruit, and leaves appear on all the trees, and the wheat harvest, and rose flowers. And all the flowers bloom in the field, but the trees of winter are withered. And these are the names of the leaders who are under them: Barkil, Zelabsiel, and another one who is added, a head over 1,000, named Heloyasiph. And the days of the period of rule of this one are complete. The second leader after him is Helamelech, whom they call the shining sun, and all the days of his light are 91. And these are the signs of the days on earth: heat and drought. And the trees bring their fruit to ripeness and maturity, and make their fruit dry. And the sheep mate and become pregnant. And men gather all the fruits of the earth, and everything that is in the fields, and the vats of wine. And these things occur in the days of his period of rule. And these are the names, and the orders, and the leaders of these heads over thousands: Gedaliah, Keel, and Heel. And the name of head over 1,000, who is added to them, is Asphael. And the days of his period of rule are complete. And now, my son Methuselah, I will show you all the visions that I saw, recounting them before you. 2 visions I saw before I took a wife, and neither one was like the other. For the first time when I learnt the art of writing, and for the second time before I took your mother. I saw a terrible vision, and concerning this I made supplication to the Lord. I had lain down in the house of my grandfather, Malalel, when I saw in a vision how heaven was thrown down and removed, and it fell upon the earth. And when it fell upon the earth, I saw how the earth was swallowed up in a great abyss, and mountains were suspended on mountains, and hills sank down upon hills, and tall trees were torn up by their roots, and were thrown down and sank into the abyss. And then speech fell into my mouth, and I raised my voice to cry out and said, "The earth is destroyed." And my grandfather Malalel roused me, since I lay near him, and said to me, "Why did you cry out so, my son, and why do you moan so?" And I recounted to him the whole vision which I had seen, and he said to me, "A terrible thing you have seen, my son. Your dream vision concerns the secrets of all the sin of the earth. It is about to sink into the abyss and be utterly destroyed. And now, my son, rise and make supplication to the Lord of glory, if you are faithful, that a remnant may be left on the earth, and that he may not wipe out the whole earth. My son, from heaven all this will come upon the earth, and upon the earth there will be great destruction." And then I rose and prayed and made supplication, and wrote my prayer down for the generations of eternity, and I will show everything to you, my son, Methuselah. And when I went out below and saw the sky, and the sun rising in the east, and the moon setting in the west, and some stars, and the whole earth, and everything as he knew it since the beginning, then I blessed the Lord of judgment, and ascribed majesty to him. For he makes the sun come out from the windows of the east, so that it ascends and rises on the face of heaven, and follows the path which has been shown to it. And I raised my hands in righteousness, and I blessed the Holy and Great One. And I spoke with the breath of my mouth, and with the tongue of flesh, which God has made for men born of flesh, so that they might speak with it. And he has given them breath, and a tongue, and a mouth, so that they might speak with them. Blessed are you, O Lord King, and great and powerful in your majesty, Lord of the whole creation of heaven, King of kings, and God of the whole world. And your kingly authority, and your sovereignty, and your majesty will last forever, and forever, and ever. And your power for all generations. And all the heavens are your throne forever, and the whole earth your footstool forever, and ever, and ever. For you made and you rule everything, and nothing is too hard, and no wisdom escapes you. It does not turn away from your throne, nor from your presence. And you know and see and hear everything, and nothing is hidden from you, for you see everything. And now the angels of your heaven are doing wrong, and your anger rests upon the flesh of men until the day of the great judgment. And now, O God, Lord, and great King, I entreat and ask that you will fulfill my prayer to leave me a posterity on earth, and not to wipe out all the flesh of men, and make the earth empty so that there is destruction forever. And now, my Lord, wipe out from the earth the flesh that has provoked your anger, but the flesh of righteousness and uprightness establish as a seed-bearing plant forever. And do not hide your face from the prayer of your servant, O Lord. And after this I saw another dream, and I will show it all to you, my son. And Enoch raised his voice and said to his son Methuselah, "To you I speak, my son, hear my words, and incline your ear to the dream vision of your father. Before I took your mother Edna, I saw a vision on my bed, and behold, a bull came out of the earth, and that bull was white. And after it a heifer came out, and with the heifer came 2 bullocks, and one of them was black and the other red. And that black bullock struck the red one, and pursued it over the earth, and from then on I could not see that red bullock. But that black bullock grew, and a heifer went with it. And I saw that many bulls came from it, which were like it, and followed behind it. And that cow, that first one, came from the presence of that first bull, seeking that red bullock, but did not find it. And then it moaned bitterly and continued to seek it. And I looked until that first bull came to it and calmed it, and from that time it did not cry out. And after this she bore another white bull. And after this she bore many black bulls and cows. And I saw in my sleep that white bull, how it likewise grew and became a large white bull. And from it came many white bulls, and they were like it. And they began to beget many white bulls that were like them, one following another. And again I looked with my eyes as I was sleeping, and I saw heaven above, and behold, a star fell from heaven, and it arose and ate and pastured among those bulls. And after this I saw the large and the black bulls, and behold, all of them changed their pens and their pastures and their heifers, and they began to moan one after another. And again I saw in the vision, and looked up at heaven, and behold, I saw many stars, how they came down, and were thrown down from heaven to that first star, and fell amongst those heifers and bulls. They were with them, pasturing amongst them. And I looked at them and saw, and behold, all of them let out their private parts like horses, and began to mount the cows of the bulls. And they all became pregnant, and bore elephants, camels, and asses. And all the bulls were afraid of them, and were terrified in front of them. And they began to bite with their teeth, and to devour and to gore with their horns. And so they began to devour those bulls, and behold, all of the sons of the earth began to tremble and shake before them, and to flee. And again I saw them, how they began to gore one another, and to devour one another, and the earth began to cry out. And I raised my eyes again to heaven, and saw in the vision, and behold, there came from heaven beings that were like white men, and 4 came from that place, and 3 others with them. And those 3 who came out last took hold of me by my hand, and raised me from the generations of the earth, and lifted me up onto a high place, and showed me a tower high above the earth, and all the hills were lower. And one said to me, Remain here until you have seen everything which is coming upon these elephants and camels and asses, and upon the stars, and upon all the bulls. And I saw one of those 4 who had come out first, how he took hold of that first star which had fallen from heaven, and bound it by its hands and feet, and threw it into an abyss. And that abyss was narrow and deep and horrible and dark. And one of them drew his sword, and gave it to those elephants, camels, and asses, and they began to strike one another, and the whole earth shook because of them. And as I looked in the vision, behold, one of those 4 who had come out cast a line from heaven, and gathered and took all the large stars, those whose private parts were like the private parts of horses, and bound them all by their hands and their feet, and threw them into a chasm of the earth. And one of those 4 went to a white bull, and taught him a mystery, trembling as he was. He was born a bull, but became a man, and built for himself a large vessel, and dwelt on it. And 3 bulls went with him in that vessel, and they were covered over. And again I raised my eyes to heaven, and saw a high roof with 7 water channels on it, and those channels discharged much water into an enclosure. And again I looked, and behold, springs opened on the floor of that large enclosure, and water began to bubble up, and to rise above the floor. And I looked at that enclosure until its whole floor was covered by water. And water, darkness, and mist increased on it. And I looked at the height of that water, and that water had risen above that enclosure, and was pouring out over the enclosure, and it remained on the earth. And all the bulls of that enclosure were gathered together, until I saw how they sank, and were swallowed up and destroyed in that water. And that vessel floated on the water, but all the bulls, elephants, camels, and asses sank to the bottom, together with all the animals, so that I could not see them. And they were unable to get out, but were destroyed, and sank into the depths. And again I looked at that vision until those water channels were removed from that high roof, and the chasms of the earth were made level, and other abysses were opened. And the water began to run down into them until the earth became visible, and that vessel settled on the earth, and the darkness departed, and light appeared. And that white bull who became a man went out from that vessel, and the 3 bulls with him. And one of the 3 bulls was white, like that bull, and one of them was red as blood, and one was black. And that white bull passed away from them. And they began to beget wild animals and birds, so that there arose from them every kind of species, lions, tigers, wolves, dogs, hyenas, wild boars, foxes, badgers, pigs, falcons, vultures, kites, eagles, and ravens. But amongst them was born a white bull. And they began to bite one another, but that white bull, which was born amongst them, begat a wild ass and a wild bull with it, and the wild asses increased. But that bull which was born from it begat a black wild boar and a white sheep, and that wild boar begat many boars, and that sheep begat 12 sheep. And when those 12 sheep had grown, they handed one of their number over to the asses, and those in turn handed that sheep over to the wolves, and that sheep grew up amongst the wolves. And the Lord brought the 11 sheep to dwell with it, and to pasture with it amongst the wolves, and they increased and became many flocks of sheep. And the wolves began to make them afraid, and they oppressed them until they made away with their young, and then they threw their young into a river with much water. But those sheep began to cry out because of their young, and to complain to their Lord. But a sheep which had been saved from the wolves fled and escaped to the wild asses. And I saw the sheep moaning and crying out and petitioning the Lord with all of their power, until the Lord of the sheep came down at the call of the sheep from a high room, and came to them and looked at them. And he called that sheep which had fled from the wolves, and spoke to it about the wolves, that it should warn them, that they should not touch the sheep. And the sheep went to the wolves in accordance with the word of the Lord, and another sheep met that sheep and went with it. And the two of them together entered the assembly of those wolves, went into the middle of that stretch of water. But the wolves pursued the sheep, and those wolves ran after them into that stretch of water. But when they saw the Lord of the sheep, they turned to flee in front of him. But that stretch of water flowed together again, and suddenly resumed its natural form, and the water swelled up and rose until it covered those wolves. And I looked until all the wolves that had pursued those sheep were destroyed and drowned. But the sheep knew, and went down from the summit of the rock, and came to the sheep, and found the majority of them with their eyes blinded, and going astray from the path. And when they saw it, they were afraid, and trembled before it, and wished that they could return to their enclosure. And that sheep took some other sheep with it, and went to those sheep that had gone astray, and then began to kill them. And the sheep were afraid of it. And that sheep brought back those sheep that had gone astray, and they returned to their enclosures. And I looked there at the vision until that sheep became a man, and built a house of the Lord of the sheep, and made all the sheep stand in that house. And I looked until that sheep, which had met that sheep that led the sheep, fell asleep. And I looked until all the large sheep were destroyed, and small ones arose in their place, and they came to a pasture, and drew near a river of water. And that sheep that led them, which had become a man, separated from them and fell asleep, and all the sheep saw it, and cried out very bitterly over it. And I looked until they left off crying for that sheep, and crossed that river of water. And there arose all the sheep that led them, in place of those which had fallen asleep, and they led. And I looked until the sheep came to a good place, and a pleasant and glorious land, and I looked until those sheep were satisfied. And that house was in the middle of them in that green and pleasant land. And sometimes their eyes were opened, and sometimes blinded, until another sheep rose up, led them, and brought them all back, and their eyes were opened. And the dogs, and the foxes, and the wild boars began to devour those sheep, until the Lord of the sheep raised up a ram from among them, which led them. And that ram began to butt those dogs, foxes, and wild boars on one side and on the other, until it had destroyed them all. And the eyes of that sheep were opened, and it saw that ram in the middle of the sheep, how it renounced its glory, and began to butt those sheep, and how it trampled on them, and behaved unbecomingly. And the Lord of the sheep sent the sheep to another sheep, and raised it up to be a ram, and to lead the sheep in place of that sheep which had renounced its glory. And it went to it, and spoke with it alone, and raised up that ram, and made it the prince and leader of the sheep. And during all of this, those dogs oppressed the sheep. And the first ram pursued that second ram, and that second ram rose and fled before it. And I looked until those dogs made the first